Everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. So, today is Monday, May the 3rd. Interesting. We're getting early May the 4th be with you sales. Although, in all fairness, I don't feel like Disney is really embracing Star Wars at the moment, so I imagine we won't get too many sales. We really didn't feel like we got that many last year either. I wanted to show off in the accountability section here. We are now doing the Zombieland Saga Revenge crossover on Shadowverse. What I've been working on a little bit. Now, not a ton, frankly, because I also played Karateka, which is a game that's way too short, and it's the 2012 remake of Karateka. It's kind of a rhythm game that's extremely linear. You can do it in less than 40 minutes. Easily, you could do it less than probably 20 minutes. And it's so stupid easy to at least get to the ending, and a successful ending, that there's not a lot of fun to be had there. Let's go ahead and replace this 20 reward. And then I started to play Hyperlight Drifter, and I literally just failed miserably on that game, in the sense that I played it on standard, and 3 hours into it, I've decided to restart the entire game on easy, because there's major difficulty spikes in it, as far as you can go through a screen in a top-down Zelda-like world. What are the new supplies? New sleeves? You can go through one screen and potentially fight one character or no characters. And, ooh, pick your favorite zombie girl. Who would be my favorite zombie girl? I would say Yugiri here is a good choice, because she doesn't, like, all of these are the zombie girls in makeup, so you can't see that they're zombies. But if you want a generic anime girl, I think Yugiri is my pick. So we'll take her. Of course, immediately the price will change. Now. Ooh. They're all free. Alright, well, give me every single zombie girl. Well, let's just take our second pick then. We'll just do this in ranking order. Guess we'll go with Junko Kono. I haven't watched Zombieland Saga. I've heard it's pretty good. And then I think we'll go with Psycho Nikaido. Saki Nikaido. And then, let's see. We're just going for different hair colors at this point. So we'll go with Lily Hoshikawa. And then I guess we'll go with Mizuno. I'm just very quickly, randomly picking people. Sakura Minamoto. And Tai Yamada. So yeah, Hyperlight Drifter, I could easily rage quit. And apparently I can get this item as free too. Wow, is just everything free? Or is there some glitch going on? If there's a glitch going on and I can get everything for free, I will take everything for free. I was hoping that we'd come down to these elements and realize that they are free also. These may have been free actually when they first came out, and they are now premium currency only for people who want to catch up. And that almost seems fair. It's not super nice to new players to potentially say, hey, if you want the old skins and card backs, you have to pay. But then also they are kind of just cosmetic garbage anyway. So yeah, that was nice. That was a nice surprise. But because I finished Pinball FX3, I was trying really hard. I tried to do it with FFmpeg filters. I tried to do it with VST plugins. I tried to do it with any plugin I could possibly find for OBS. And frankly, a lot of the OBS plugins are fairly obviously like really, really obscure. They are solutions somebody programmed for themselves. And would really only affect probably 1,000 to 10,000 people who use OBS anyways. Like the Live 2D model player. Cool idea. I could steal some of the models out of Destiny Child since that uses Live 2D, and I could have those anime waifus dancing around. But there's the copyright issue there, or the fair use issue there, and while I could possibly show that off for the purposes of education once, having an anime waifu dancing in the corner of the screen at all times is not really fair use. Plus, the next step to that most logically would be to have somebody program a Live 2D character to specifically represent the announcer, me in this case. Let's open another one of these packs. And that's still beyond something I'd be willing to pay somebody to do. There's also an argument that Live 2D is more of a closed source solution than there is actually a open source solution, I think called OpenBase. But yeah. As far as the audio settings that I've been trying to do, I've tried to install a de-esser, and every time I've tried to use a de-esser that would potentially remove the lisps S sound at the end of the that I get sometimes when my lips are dry, like none of it seems to work, which is an argument. Maybe I do have a lisp and there's just no solution to that. That could be the case. Or it could just be that I am just setting the settings completely wrong, or that the filters are not working. In parallel, to that, I would like a affix big bottom effect, which would turn the bass frequencies up in my voice so that I would sound warmer and more like I was on a radio. And frankly, if I'm a little sleepy, if I'm moving a little slow, if I sound a little dull, sometimes I feel like I do, a big bottom I think might help a little bit with that. I can't even find any plugins that really will work with that. There's supposed to be one in FFmpeg, but it's not showing up with the OBS plugin to use FFmpeg audio filters. So, yeah. And see, the thing that's supposed to also stop de-essing is a pop filter at a certain level. And I already have a pop filter. So, unless my pop filter is particularly bad, which I don't think it is, it at the very least stops pops, then I don't know what else to do. The biggest thought I can have is spending the big money and getting a Rodecaster Pro, because Rodecaster Pro has both the de-esser filter and the big bottom filter licensed into it. So you'd be buying a $500 small soundboard audio interface. I'd have to buy a new microphone to plug into that audio interface eventually, although not initially, because what I could do is I could have the PC audio in to the Rodecaster Pro include a USB Blue Yeti sound, but then that down mixes both the PC sound effects and your microphone, which is not what you really want. You want to be able to have every microphone on its own fader, including the PC in. So yeah, if they decide to give out more stimulus checks, I think on my list of ridiculous purchases, a Rodecaster Pro is on the list, particularly since I suggested features to them to add and they added them. So it would be really, really rude to not eventually buy a product that I asked them to improve. Finally, I wanted to show the other thing I've been working on. So I've been talking about it and thinking about it. It's like, how can you play an adult game on YouTube? Is there a way to artistically, visually, interesting wise, not show all the content, but blur some content? Now, I tried it with a chroma key effect that would try and find the range of skin tones. Now, inherently, this works way better with like animated characters, particularly Japanese visual novels, because they almost all are within the same range of skin tone. They are Asian/white skin colored, so that's very easy. And you just have to kind of expand that to whatever range of reds and pinks that nipples and genitals might be, and so you can, with a chroma key, potentially try and find anything on the screen whatsoever that might be flesh, and I've been able to turn it gray at that point. And so that's almost like a dynamic identification. There probably would be some kind of deep detection also that you could do to determine whether what is being shown is a human or not, but the level of accuracy on that would not be 100%. Plus, the skin tone fails, particularly. You either have to set it so high so it gets almost every single color, regardless of whether it's anywhere close to flesh, or you set it low enough and it fails in some places, and any failure would be unacceptable. This solution would have to be a 100% solution for it to be easy. Otherwise, it's just smarter to edit your video in general and after the fact, and that's the work that I don't want to do. And of course, I could just blur things. There isn't a filter I've seen that just does straight up mosaics, but I could make it seem like you slapped Vaseline over the monitor and everything is blurry. But I wanted something a little bit more creative than that. Also, I'd say the skin color chroma key fails miserably if you have anybody who doesn't have white skin, including in visual novels, furries, scalies, anything that's green or blue, anything like that, completely uncensored. So that didn't work. So as far as I can think, this is what I've got. I've got here a circular blur that is spinning the image, and I'll show you what the image is in a second because this is just a Steam page, and making a kind of spiral animation on it. So the colors are kind of blurred, but you cannot see at all what is going on. And inherently, this is not really what I would want as an experiment for a blur. Like, this would be fine for a brief blur segment, and maybe that's the way it would have to be used. but you would want the general outline of what's going on. This is very, very extreme. Also, on top of this blur, I have a dynamic mask that is using a different filter that is turning my voice into a spectrum analyzer. So you may see that in the center of the screen, there is this pulsating like circle that is happening, and that is based on the audio that is playing through the microphone and the PC. I think both sources. So yeah, that's kind of a cool effect. It's better than simply just having a spectrum analyzer on the screen, which is kind of boring. This is a circular spectrum analyzer, so it's got bars and peaks all around it in 360 that pop up, which has a tendency by default to have very large peaks in the lower left-hand quadrant and not so high peaks anywhere else. So I had to work and tweak it quite a bit. So yeah, that's what it has been, but if I reduce the size of the blur to about there, then you start to see what's being shown. But inherently, this is kind of the problem, is that this kind of blur is not really useful. And when I bring it all the way off, then you can just see we're looking at a web page. And the movement and the changing of colors was just that this was cycling, which pretty much means that it would stay stationary, that blur, always, and there's not any not really any change would happen in a stationary visual novel's adult scene. That would just not be moving. And here you can see the dynamic mask of the volume, and see the blur happens on top of the dynamic mask, so the dynamic mask adds a bit of change too. And see, you can see in the lower left hand quadrant of the spectrum analyzer that is something that gets a lot of peaks, whereas some of these other sections don't get so many peaks. So if I turn off the dynamic mask, I have to turn off the spectrum analyzer too, don't I? The only other blur we could do is something just like this. And see, this would be a much more classic blur, and at a certain point it just kind of doesn't matter. Like, I could turn down the blurring all I want, but at what point is it YouTube family friendly? If you were seeing pictures of adult nature right now, does a little blurry really matter? Or, I mean, this is it pretty much off. Or does a lot matter? Like, A, it's not artistic. You could just blur the whole thing like crazy, and at least that shows what to do. This is what YouTube would let you do, basically, is just blur the whole screen. You might be able to apply a mask to this, and if you could find a way to get a mask in particular to dynamically and automatically find the parts it needs to blur, that would be great, because you don't need it to actually blur everything. You just need it to blur the inappropriate parts. But that's difficult, certainly. And there's all kinds of different settings, and a lot of these settings really don't make a lot of sense, or just would not be easy for me to understand how they work. What we don't really have though is a blur that goes that does the squares, the mosaics, and I think that is in part because I don't think the mosaics really work. Let's see. Am I showing anything, or did it not apply any of those filters? Interesting. Well, I thought I was showing them, but I may not have been. Interesting. Let's see. Swing over here. Swing over here. Yep. So, yeah. Let me just once again show, yeah, none of the changes I was making actually affected anything. So I was just rambling there and you weren't even seeing, say, this spectrum analyzer here that was playing on top of that filter. And I won't even bother to show the other blurs, but the other blurs were blurry. Oh yeah, well, I guess I also still have some stuff to just specifically learn as far as how the how OBS really works when in studio mode, that you can make all those changes and it is programmed specifically not to kick in until you activate that scene. Which that makes a lot of sense, frankly. So yeah, when you have a game like this, when you have something that you want to show but it's needs to be blurred, I still have yet to really find a solution. And for a game like Lust from Darkness, that is a game where every single shot, every single angle is potentially going to have to be blurred. So it really would just be this audio journey, unless I can figure out some other trick. And there might be a trick to it, but it is really just a combination of things. Because let me just show this as an idea. There's a plugin to apply a LUT, L-U-T, which stands for lookup table. And so a lookup table, while not the be-all end-all of a solution, can turn things to black and white. Now, with enough adjustment, a black and white image is exactly what you need to turn into a mask. So what I would need to do to find the middle step is I'm at step 1, apply lookup table, step 2, question mark, question mark, question mark, step 3, profit. The thing you would want to do here is figure out a way to find just the outlines. And at a certain point, you might be able to then use a mask to specifically filter out certain areas or turn certain things into black and white outlines. Now, at a certain point, and this is where my head is only one person's opinion, and it's probably very different from like what Steam's opinion would be, which we know what Steam's opinion is. Don't play Lust for Darkness. Don't play this game. Don't cover it. Let it be censored. Let it never be spoken of again. But trying to find a middle ground between those two thoughts. there is a real question. Is it any better if I could apply lookup tables and other filters to turn something into basically a manga with blackout lines? I mean, if nipples are still being drawn, if it's still obvious that there are forms being drawn, like, arguably, I think maybe some people might argue that a manga black and white drawing compared to a full 3D animation might be a little more acceptable. Like, if you could get it down to basically as close to a stick figure as possible, it might be, in some people's minds, more acceptable. But I don't think that's the majority of people. I still think it's the exact same focus. And so I think if I was, and see, I've put a lot of thought into this so far as to how to go this way. But I've also seen a lot of other YouTubers try to go this route, and they're just constantly getting like strikes and constantly having to fail. Arguably, the real solution here would be to lock it behind a Patreon. That would be the easiest solution, and probably a smart solution. Is once I got like 1,000 subscribers, or if I got, say, I mean, how many people would have to subscribe to a Patreon at a certain level for that to be a bonus feature? I would say 30 people, Patreon followers, giving like at least $1 a month. I think that's reasonable. 60 players giving at least $1 a month, something that averaged to about $60 a month to pay for that one game, I think would be a reasonable price. So yeah, 30 people if some of them give more than $1 a month, or 60 if all of them gave only $1 a month. That would be a reasonable thing. And then I don't know what service you put that up on. Do you straight up make like an OnlyFans account at that point, or do you put it as an unpublished video on YouTube and hope YouTube never sees it, which I think YouTube very possibly still scans the unpublished videos. At some point, if I was going to do Patreon bonuses of adult games, and it was on a service like OnlyFans or some other service like that, I feel like at that point I also would probably need to have local backups of at least that footage, and that would get very expensive very quick. As far as hard drive space. Anyways, I've been rambling about this. I'm definitely putting some thought into it. What I'm probably going to do is forget about it for a while and then think about it some more. Theoretically, if there are new plugins that came out with OBS or new features that came out with OBS, that might solve a big problem. The other thing is to just think of artistic ways of taking audio and turning it into something visual, which is another way to go. Certainly, if I could find a very artistic way to take my speech right now and turn it into some video, that would be nice also, instead of doing what I'm doing now, which is pretending like I really care about Shadowverse and playing it as just a way of making some background video. What are we trying to do here? Swordcraft, Portalcraft, Bloodcraft, or Havencraft? Let's see who we don't have. Event in progress. Interesting. What is the event in progress? Play one private match without quitting. Okay, so I would have to get onto the forum and do the private matches. let's not do that quite yet. Instead, what I want to do is try to play some games and try to get some movement. It does seem like my network, like around 5 in the morning on Monday, immediately I started to have little bits of network trouble. Again, definitely feels like my ISP. And it does seem like whatever I've set is just going to have a amount of dropped frames right at the beginning that spikes it up to like 5% drop frames. But as the recording goes, it seems to slowly decrease it. So like it feels to me like there's about 6,000 drop frames, which 60 frames per second, divide that by 6,000, you're talking 100 seconds. There's basically a minute and a half, a minute 40 to be more accurate, I suppose. How many cards are we missing? Way too many for that. How many cards are missing here? Ah, that seems reasonable. So Voltio Bloodcraft. And so what we'll want to do is take out that, and that, and that, and that. And let's see, if we limit ourselves just to Velstar cards, we'll add one of those. We'll take that, and that. This is probably not a terrible card to add to, so we'll just go with that. And so that's not a terrible. We'll go with 431. And what was it called? Voltio? Tourney. I think that works as a potential deck. Let's try that. Give that a try. I did change the settings on my QoS a little bit, quality of service, to try and emphasize Shadowverse a little bit more and upstreaming a little bit more. But I'm very possibly made a mistake there, so might go and change those settings again. That's inherently the problem. Is I'm just gonna constantly want to tweak. If I have this in my hand to begin with, and I evolve a bunch, it lowers its cost. So I'm not sure if I am gonna evolve a bunch in this deck. Well, so we've been looking at this game as an example in the Legends of Redwall, the Scout Act 2. I had heard about this game, the Legends of Redwall. It's weird that there's several versions here. Like, we have this here is mostly positive. Interesting. Well, I'm gonna put the first game on the wish list. And what does Soma Games also make? Then you also have Escape the Gloomer, which they're making, I believe, a Amazon Prime or Netflix show around this. And see, this is just a text-based game, so that's not something I think I'd want to do. That sounds too boring. And I'll go ahead and put Act 2 on the fall list. And then, do they have anything else of interest? Oh, there's this game called, let's see, The Lost Legends of Redwall the Scout, Act 3, which I guess you should probably recognize that they are just basically serializing this series. Then they have a game called G Prime. There's a game called Soma, and see, that's the weird thing, is there's a game called Soma and yet it's not made by Soma Games. Let's see. And then can I safely show what I've decided to put in my cart? I'm gonna just make sure I'm not gonna leak any information. So as far as the Golden Week sale went, I decided to put Candle, Soul Calibur 6 Deluxe Edition, State of Mind, which is now back up to $20, so remove that. JJ Macfield, Trine 2, since I covered Trine 1. Sinrin Kagura Peach Beach Splash at $16, Okami at $10, and Root Ladder at $2.79, which puts me at $63.23, having 7 things now in the list. There's obviously room where you could potentially just grow this list more and buy more things. I could get Danganronpa 2, but I don't even really feel like it's a need to do that. I did that. I got down to that list by adjusting and looking at to what had been reduced before. So if a game had been at that exact same price 30-40 times before, then it's not really any new or special deal. I can catch it in the next sale. Arguably, I could remove Soul Calibur 6 right now because I don't specifically expect myself to play that. Peach Beach Splash I kind of do want. Okami I kind of do want. But I could remove Candle right now. And see, then that brings it down to $39.75. Just having the missing JJ Macfield, Trine 2, Sinrin Kagura Peach Beach Splash, this is also the Sexy Soko limited edition of that game, Okami HD, and Root Letter. Yeah, that is a much more reasonable shopping list than what I had before, and I think that works very well. Now, inherently, the problem with purchasing anything is it's not like I'm making a lot of content. If anything, I'm dropping the ball crazy as far as making content, and at some point here I may just have to start scheduling old Shadowverse videos in a time slot, or just drop a time slot completely, which we already have dropped one time slot over the years. At one point I did have 3 or 4 things airing on my channel every Monday through Friday. And now we're down to 2. Dropping down to 1 doesn't sound great. None of the content really gets views at all. So theoretically, if I just live streamed, I probably would get the most amount of views that way, for whatever that's worth. But that isn't worth a lot to me, though. I don't want to turn my channel into just a live streaming only channel where I'm only playing Shadowverse, or I'm having to struggle to figure out a way to live stream footage. I suppose I could become super random and just live stream at random times every game I'm covering, but then I'd have to reschedule and relabel the live stream information over and over again, which that wouldn't work particularly well. Plus, it's a slightly different experience to live stream when you're intentionally not going to say anything or talk to people. Let's see. If I play this, just go ahead and do this. I think that's probably the best move. See, next we have a game on Steam here called Age of Legion. Let's start burning through this news. We left games from Friday because we're still experimenting with this. This is $8.99, English and Chinese. The Chinese did come out with more like direct explanations, according to Censored Gaming, on how they're going to censor games going forward, as whether they get approval or not. It seems like there's about 5 categories that they're looking at. You're starting at 3, and points can be added or removed, but getting 0 points in any one category immediately gets it dismissed. There also seems to be some prioritization if you get high points. Now, a lot in the translation, though, directly says we will not approve your game unless it's promoting our fake, the Chinese government's fake turn on history. Like, not just that it's not mentioning the Chinese government's take on what happened in the Chinese government. You straight up have to propagandize it to get the extra points. It'll be neutral if you don't mention it. If you say something like Tiananmen Squares actually happened, or that the Uyghur genocide is happening, you will immediately be censored and not allowed. But if you propagandize that those things didn't happen, you'll be rewarded. And that is definitely a high level of it. There's actually way more talk about promoting their propaganda than there is even talk about than there is talk about violence or gore or anything like that. It seems like China is introducing a rating system, kind of in a beta stage, that is 3+, 16+, and 12+. So it's not a very detailed age rating system for games. They also did mention, though, that they are going to reject things that appear to be low quality or appear to have questionable stolen assets. So they are addressing that somewhat, but I don't think any of that's really going to affect the games that come out on Steam. If anything, I think a lot of people, for at least a few years, will still make terrible, low-effort Chinese asset flips with stolen content and that stuff will still show up on Steam. Well, obviously, putting this in the hand was not helpful. But yeah, I suppose it's better that they say it out loud and just be loud and proud that they're a pro-censorship country than hide behind the idea that they aren't. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Tales of Far Hollow, which looks like pixely graphics and kind of a text-based game for $1.99, English only. It looks like garbage too. Here we have a game called Hasten Bay, which looks like it's a vertical slice demo of something that could have been a game, but I don't think that really in any ways is a game. $8.99 English only. Says it's early access, but I really can't give any attention to a game that is this early access, because this also looks like an asset flip, and I could easily just describe it as that also. Let's try this again, trying to lock in this deck. Next we have a game on Steam called Fluffy Gore, which looks like it is a platformer with some like gun elements. Action RPG game is what they're calling it. I kind of want to see how this plays.
Is fighting and despair all you know?
There might be something here. Like, there seems to be actual action and actual gameplay happening. Seems like you're going all over it. What kind of concerns me is the four corners of heads-up display seems a little extreme. It's coming soon, English only. I guess I'll put it on the follow list. I might need to decide to do something different as far as fall list cleanups going forward. It's not content that I honestly want to potentially stop making, but it's also not particularly great content anyways. So what we might want to do is one Friday at, say, the beginning of every month, which would be this Friday, that might be a point in which we would just say, we're not going to focus on Shadowverse on that Friday at all, much at all, and we're not going to focus on new games, and instead we're going to do Shadowverse. I still would want it to be Shadowverse just for ease of uploading, but Shadowverse and a little bit of Shadowverse and a lot of fall list cleanup stuff. I think that might work. Plus, what we could potentially find on this Friday doing that is that we need actually more time, and it may be that just every Friday turns into that. And if that's the case, well, then that spices up Fridays and gives it a different thought as far as what we would do on Fridays. Also, that would potentially put something boring in a time slot when people aren't really going to be watching anyways. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Sinking In, which looks like pixel graphics, top-down point-and-click game. It's free to play, English only, so I guess check it out if you're interested, but I imagine there isn't much there. Let's see, worth it to do that at that moment. Here we have a game on Steam called Cosmica, which looks like it's a card-based game, deck building game. It's interesting to see cards cut this way. I've seen a few collectible cards with weird shaped cards. It's usually too expensive to actually make them that way, and doesn't really benefit much because it just opens up more edges to be bent. And even here you can see that there's quite a lot of white space and empty space in the way these are designed. This is early access, $6.99. I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see. We're in a weird position specifically because there's, let's go ahead and do that. With the pandemic, I want to be a little bit more generous to games and give them a bit more of a chance. But in all fairness, there definitely are going to be some games on the fall list that have been out for 6 months to a year and still don't have any reviews. And at a certain point, I don't know if I believe this or not, but it might be a case that people just don't kind of care, and they will just move on with their lives and move on to the next games, and there will just be this kind of gap of games that came out in 2020 and 2021 that people will never check out, because when they get back to a normality, if we ever get back to the old normality, we may just have new AAA games coming out so often that then it will just be a lost year that's never recovered. Although, in all fairness, as I get older, every year feels like it's a lost year that's never recovered. And that is kind of just the way of life. Okay, what can we do? If I involve this, this. Hit that.
Though I set, I will rise again.
Go ahead and play that. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Snowswept Quest. This looks like one of these JRPG games that probably has a nudity patch somewhere, if not on Steam. $8.99, English, Japanese, and Chinese. The thing here is that, sure, there might be some kind of Zelda-esque aspects to it, or RPG aspects to it, that might catch my attention in general. In its totality, I know that this game isn't going to be that good. And I just don't see myself ever being able to go down that path. Let's see. Next we have a game called The Tales of Redbox and Escape from Desire, which is obviously just a garbage game. Notice how the images take a little while to load. Early access, free to play. Total garbage. Wait, well, I can hit that. Can I do anything else? Let's see.
Though I set, I will rise again.
I could have evolved that. That was dumb. Next we have Mahjong School, which is an interesting idea. Certainly to have a collection of characters. Although this does seem like this is just Mahjong Solitaire with anime characters. Well, I would have expected it to be actual Mahjong playing against different characters. And looking at the anime girls on the side, you have like one that's in a ninja outfit, so you kind of know that these are just asset flipped anime girls. $4.24, English, Japanese, Chinese. I doubt there's any adult content here. They can unlock the revealing costumes and or in suggestive poses and voices. So not really a lot there.
I shall give birth to a new world. By your will, O Lord.
Okay. Discard 2 cards, draw 2 cards. Let's see, here we have a game called Holostar Command Quantum Alliance, which looks like a space game with terrible graphics. $2.99, apparently it's a VR game, single player, English only. Next we have Candy Memory, which is just a mobile game of memory for $4.79. That's a ridiculous price.
The world cycles on.
Can we win here? Probably not.
There is no escape from the apocalypse to come.
Hey, check this out.
The gods will know fear. You disappoint me.
And that concludes today's sermon.
See. Next we have a game called Tom. I assume that's how you pronounce it. It looks like it is a Indian style game. It says it's a casual, short, relaxing game. It has some interesting visuals. It may not really have much of a game to it. $2.69, English only. It's about 10 to 20 minutes. Hidden puzzle game. It's a traditional art form called Surrey. No, it's a traditional art form by someone named Surrey. Coded. Alright, I'll put this on the follow list. It's a little too expensive at $2.70 for what really is just a single 20-minute demo of someone's ability. Well, this deck needs some work, I think. And definitely I need more experience with it, so let's go back to Wraith Bloodcraft and try that. Next we have a game on Steam called Space Pirate King, which looks like a space game. It honestly doesn't look really like a space game even. It looks like you spend your whole time kind of in menus more than anything else to do an odd like Star Fox type game. They're calling it a shoot 'em up, early access, English and Japanese, but you know the actual footage, it's just so ugly. Yeah. And I guess inherently that is the problem, is that I do want a Star Fox game, but also if it was a Star Fox game that was ugly, I would just immediately reject it. So, yeah, I need to be aware of that also. Here we have a game on Steam called Dragon VR, which is weird because while some of these look like dragons, some of these also just look like dinosaurs. But yeah, the idea potentially of interacting with a dragon in VR might be an interesting idea. I kind of wonder if this isn't very much just an animation. See, this guy is a dinosaur. That's not a dragon. Let's see. The game is free. It's single player, English only. I guess you put it on the fall list. I guess in particularly this case, if you've paid $600 for a VR headset, a free dragon game is something to definitely check out.
Allow me to bestow a quivering kiss.
See, I'm gonna have to go check to see if somebody's knocking on my door. 1 second, I'll be right back.
May the forest be at peace.
Sorry about that. Let's see. Let's go and play.
Bestow a quivering kiss.
Yeah, nope. There's just storms happening. And so I was hearing thunder. And through a microphone, through headphones, sometimes what you hear does come off differently. Next, we have a game on Steam called Ace Campus Club, which looks like
Delightful.
a simulation game with anime characters. And that's probably why is mixed here, is because it's a management simulation game, and people looking for like anime visual novels and anime girls probably don't want to play that kind of game. It kind of feels like it's trying to be something towards a Persona style game or a dating sim type game. Do this, do this,
Melt under
do
my
that.
touch.
Let's see if I can actually see some negative reviews on it. Gameplay looked cool, but the mechanic looks good, but the balance is horrendous. You'll be doing lots of save and load in this game because you have limited action with limited time, but you also need to make money by buying and selling stuff while doing other things. The things that happen are RNG, so you might be stuck with with a fee weekly. And you only get one action per week. Okay. Well, this is not particularly a native English speaker reviewing the game, but I definitely see the problem with Campus Club. I kind of have to applaud the ambition though, and I do want to see a potential branching out of visual novel developers away from just all making visual novels, but into different kinds of stories and more interesting stories. But you gotta be careful there also, because I don't want to see them branch out and fail miserably and then just never try anything new again. When you think about how incredibly risk averse Japanese companies in general are, the chances of a visual novel company trying something different are extremely low, and even if they did succeed, there's still high chances that it would not be well embraced. Let's see.
I won't hurt you too much.
Just have to evolve this guy.
Oh my, as promised.
See, next we have a game on Steam called Eternal Evil Prologue. And what's weird about this game is this looks really good, so why is it mixed? Like, this looks like an actual zombie game. Sure, it's a Resident Evil clone with like probably single A or double A quality. It's free to play. It's English and Russian. That might be a hint. So, bad optimization, bad controls, full screen is broken, no gamma brightness control, no music volume, no control challenge. I can see an effort and the graphics are beautiful, but the game runs really rough. There's no targeting reticle and a complete lack of heads-up display. Maybe it's just maybe when it's much more done. So yeah, this is kind of the best example of something not even being put out as early access, just being shoved out as a free game, and it just getting terrible reviews. So what are you gonna do here? Like, will Eternal Evil at some point redeem itself? I doubt it. I imagine we will never see it happen again. Destroy an enemy follower.
With this payment, darkness stands with you.
And then evolve.
Excited as I am. Well, are you?
And then
Hey, check this out.
Let your soul succumb to the void.
and hit that.
You're right as rain now.
Hmm.
I'm so excited.
I'm gonna lose anyways. So yeah, they just
I lost.
kind of screwed the pooch before they even had a chance. When that is like a prime example of a game where some publisher should have said, hey, don't put this out in this quality. We'll give you another $100,000 to polish this up and make this work. Although in the middle of this pandemic, maybe it is really a case where the funding and the publishers have run out of money, and it may just be a case that they need to try and recoup their investment as much as possible by trying. Well, no, because they put the game out for free on Steam. It makes no sense. You're not making any money anyways. So unless you had an agreement with a publisher saying you had to put out a prologue at a certain date, there's literally no reason to put out a prologue at all, ever. But if you are going to put one out, it's better be good. Unless you are trying to meta-textually lower the expectations of people playing demos. And I don't think you're going to succeed at that. I hope you're not capable of succeeding at that. There has definitely been a metatextual shift as far as like cosmetics costing money. Horse armor was originally $3 and people freaked out about that in 2006, I believe. Now, $5 cosmetic only DLC in-app purchase is very common. We've seen DLC for cosmetic onlys be as high as $89. And we've seen actual DLC that wasn't just cosmetic only. It'd be as high as at least $300 on Steam for some of those train simulator DLCs. And yeah, very few people engage in it, but the outrage has been spread amongst so many different things that people are getting away with it. This is a hideously green background.
Let's have a sweet time.
You don't belong here.
Next we have a game on Steam called Nightblade, which looks like it is a player versus player kind of arena game. I don't think it's something I could play, and I don't think it's probably anything that will catch on. $5.99, English and Turkish, online PvP only. So check it out if you're into online player versus player. But yeah, not for me. Let's see. This can involve 0 evolution points.
Tasty.
So we should focus on that and evolve it in 2 turns. Assuming it's still alive in 2 turns. Here we have a game on Steam called Dead Knight, which is obviously just a Wolfenstein 3D clone. Although arguably, oddly, there aren't too many zombie monster Wolfenstein 3D clones, because why? You would just make a Doom mod instead. Doom is the official monster Wolfenstein 3D clone. This is 59 cents English only. There's no reason why you would buy that. Let's see. Recover 2 play points. Recover 3 play points. Evolve in 1 turn. Avarice. Let's do this.
My arm could use a rest.
Tasty.
That. Just go ahead and put these on the field. At the start of your next turn, put 5 random followers originally cost at least 9 play points from your hand into play. Wow.
There's a lot more where that came from.
Let's see. Five. Evolve.
What a banquet. Tasty.
Attack. Attack.
You don't
And
belong.
attack. Next, we have a game called Squeaky Clean, which looks like it is just a horror game. Although, the idea of a cleaning simulation game might be interesting to some people with some OCD cleaning metrics, but honestly, I don't think so. $4.99 English only. Yeah, I couldn't imagine that you could simulate any soothing you would get from actually cleaning instead of actually cleaning in general.
Go ahead, curse me.
Check this out.
Let's settle this, you evil bloodsucker. You don't belong here.
Yeah. And if you did have a simulation game like on your phone where you could pretend like you're cleaning something, you'd probably wear out your phone just like wiping the screen up and down like you were wiping something. Also, if you're OCD about cleaning, I also have to wonder if you wouldn't see. Was insatiable desire. Don't want that. See if this works. Yeah, if you were gonna do a cleaning game, it'd be a lot like that home flipper game where there could just be a lot of germs and dirt and grime and stuff that you really wouldn't want to animate or look at. If anything, I think people with germophobia or OCD tendencies probably heavily appreciate when games are completely bereft of dirt and grime, or they can from their own mental thought process
Dark Lord, is that you?
like I could see them intentionally like recognizing that the fake dirt in a game is not the same as real dirt.
Behold the fists of immortal supremacy.
I lost. You're tough.
Let's see if this is YouTube family friendly enough. Probably not, but I'm gonna show it anyways because this one is a crazy game. Let's go back and try this. So here we have Cuckold Simulator, Life as a Beta Male Cuck. Which, yeah, this clearly is a joke game and a troll game. Early access for $1.99. I do not recommend anybody actually buy it, but it, if anything, is important to point out games like this to show that they are getting allowed on Steam, either because people at Valve are not looking at the games that are being listed and they have not even the most basic trigger words to email somebody and say, hey, this game has this phrase in it, maybe you should look at it a little bit better. They don't even have the smallest of a smoke detector type concept going on as far as potentially offensive content. It does bring about an interesting question though, because it's a set. One of the rules that we looked at as far as games that were not allowed on Steam were things designed to be blatantly offensive or disgusting, which is an attempt to translate certain legal decisions and laws to say that free speech in the United States does not protect things that are blatantly offensive or designed to be blatantly offensive or disgusting. Now, arguably, if you really dived into the case law on that, it probably does. And that is almost certainly an interpretation of old decisions and old laws, not what the current precedence really is as far as the protection of art. And we kind of have to just call all video games art in a very loose sense this time. But if you can make a game like that, and it, to my eye, fairly obviously is supposed to be blatantly offensive and disgusting, then pretty much, I guess, anything that's supposed to be blatantly offensive or disgusting should be allowed by that same standard, because the standard is effectively no standard. And in a fair, on the other perspective of it, like parody and the idea of labeling something parody versus the idea of labeling something blatantly offensive and disgusting, there is no big difference there. Like, not at all. Like, you could say that Fritz the Cat, as in an adult animated movie from like the 70s and comic book, was blatantly offensive and disgusting, and undoubtedly it was. But you can also say that that it was parody, and it was that also. And sometimes these extreme pieces of content really are not appreciated in their own time, and it takes people a while to realize it. Almost every game on Steam would be considered blatantly offensive and disgusting 200 years ago, if we could magically bring over a puritanical pilgrim or something like that. They would almost certainly agree with say that. Then also, if you showed most games to a strict, very strict, very fundamentalist Muslim, they would say a significant number of the games are blatantly offensive and disgusting for just the fact that female characters have their hair showing. So, yeah, that's really a point to just highlight how that standard is not a good standard. And frankly, they should just say, if it's something that Gabe Newell doesn't like, or that we don't like, we are opening up the possibility that we may just decide we don't want to do business with you. And they probably do say that in the contract later on, because we have seen Valve say, we just don't want to do business with you or sell this game. But they might as well just say it is straight up just our opinion. If we have an opinion that we don't like one game and we don't want to sell it, we're not going to sell it.
I'm already a proper lady, you know.
There we go. Let's go and evolve this. So yeah, maybe that's the reason why a game like that actually is on Steam, is because they don't want to be the judge and jury, and they are leaning more towards the libertarian ideology, which I think that's probably fair in that case also. I just kind of wish they would apply the same standard to adult games as much as they do to troll Western games. Okay, do we have a way to kill this? Yeah. Actually, we did. So we could have won there. even without them conceding. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Scavengers, which looks actually really good, so it's a shame that it's mixed reviewed. It must play terribly. Free to play, in-app purchases, online PvP. The game had potential, but then they scrubbed it all away with the last 5 minutes of each match, punishing you for playing the rest of the match by putting you in a torturous grudge match to take off the planet. The game is basically the cycle, but more punishing, with a mobile meta that enforces a crazy grind and rewards players for doing it, making it even harder to win matches against top players who are grinding away. It's a really painful experience. Okay, I'll take that review and leave it there, since this is an online PvP game anyways. It's a shame because the animation, like, I am not doing it justice. Some of these monsters that they fight look really good. And so clearly there's a side that plays as the monsters. Although I see some characters dabbing now, and that's never great as far as what I want to see. Start this again. Speaking of Doom, a Doom 2 mod called Wolfenstein Blade of Agony has been released after 6 years of work. What's funny is it's a Doom 2 mod that is set in World War II, which you would just assume is a Wolfenstein. You can get this mod from ModDB or its official website. Let's see, can we get a general idea of what the game looks like? What's funny is this does not, to me, look like Doom 2. This looks more like Doom 2. What's funny too is 6 years in the work, he's making references to like the previous Wolfenstein series, whereas now all of that has been completely wiped away with the Wolfenstein reboot series, which is going in a very different direction. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you really would want to play that mod unless you were heavy into Doom 2 mods or Doom 2 in general. Then you almost certainly want to play that mod. And I suppose that is enough reason to still consider that news. Although we typically don't bother to announce when every single mod somewhere comes out. And if I did that, it would take... I would be talking about mods forever. TechRaptor also has an article. We Are the Caretakers is barely early access, but it has potential. Which, okay, that's good to know. I've so far not been impressed by We Are the Caretakers, but they may find some quality there. Here we have a game on Steam called Magical Otogo Iris, which has kind of that soft pastel watercolor painting to it as a visual novel. It's an Otome visual novel. $19.99, English only. What are we gonna do with visual novels? I guess we put them on the follow list and give them a chance. Otherwise, I'm just gonna reject all visual novels no matter what, and that also seems like an unfair thing to do. Okay. It can evolve in 2 turns. Next game is tag sexual content, so let me make sure all the screenshots are family friendly. Yep, they seem to be. Here we have a game called Cute Girls Love Books, which I'm not sure that's particularly true, but here you have some pretty awful drawn girls reading books with jigsaw puzzles on top of them. Although I'm not sure this one's reading a book. And the one in the bikini's not reading a book. And that one's not reading a book. So there's literally one screenshot of a girl reading a book. Yeah. That is $1.19 English only, full audio allegedly. And I will leave that in the allegedly category. Alright, let's do this. Okay. And do we want to do this? Or do we want to do this?
It's your throw.
Hit that. Next, we have a game on Steam called Sumo Tori Dreams Classic, which seems to be an attempt at making something that is kind of like a sumo game, but then there's also some other garbage around it as far as mini games, and the animation itself does not seem like it's done well. I would actually be interested in playing a sumo game, but I don't know how you'd actually turn a video game into a sumo game. Sumo wrestling, $4.99, English only. I would have to just kind of assume that let's see. I would almost have to assume that it would be a rhythm game or something, or a very quick reaction game with quick time events. That's about all I could think you could do to properly come anywhere close towards a sumo wrestling game. Here we have a Tech Raptor article, a game called Mamiya, A Shared Illusion of the World's End review, which definitely feels like a visual novel. Which, are we now hitting a point where we're going to have visual novels reviewed by Tech Raptor? I guess if they get the game for free from the publisher. They gave it a 9.0. Sometimes Mamiya gets you analyzing yourself in ways that are uncomfortable, but those moments of clarity bring the narrative back to the place that's as fascinating as it is haunting. Prose, great story, dark and interesting visuals, excellent soundtrack. Cons, the pacing can be a bit slow, and this is James Bentley reviewing it. Now the question here is this game on Steam? Because I haven't seen it. Let's see. They say PC, and then they linked to a game. And oddly, I did put this on the follow list. So we may hit a point where visual novels just don't get enough reviews in general. And so I don't know what you do after that point to fix that issue. Like you leave them on the fall list, I guess, longer. That's about your only solution. Is just if something is positively reviewed either by Tech Raptor and you can remember that, or if it has 4 positive reviews and that's the only reviews it gets. At a certain point, relevancy exists for a reason, so it might make a lot of sense to just ignore a game even if it is really good, if nobody's heard of it, but I don't know if I like that. It's probably right for my channel because I don't have enough viewers that to really highlight something and get a lot more people to see it. But it's wrong for bigger channels, and yet that's exactly what bigger channels would do. Alright, well. Let's do this.
My crumpets.
And then that.
What?
Next, we have a game on Steam here called Sacred Cubes 2, which seems to just be some asset flips of stacking cubes.
I am the fallen leaf.
$2.39, English and Russian.
How about some feline fun? Please. Those acorns flying out of the way.
Next, we have a game called Tower of Wishes, which looks like it's just a match 3 game with other mini games. Hidden Object Game Matchup 3. $6.79 English only. Honestly, I just don't want a game that is 5 different types of games. That is very much just master of none, jack of all trades, master of none mentality. There we go.
The hour of judgment has come. Hear the roar of my 9 flames. My pick is mine, and mine alone. My pick is mine, and mine
Interesting.
alone. Bow before my beauty.
He's
Flames of the 9 tails.
ramping up this guy
I lost. You're tough.
in a 1-turn kill. I thought I was gonna win there. Guess I'm not doing terrible. Although I am actually kind of doing terrible, am I not? Because I think I only needed 1 Bloodcraft victory. Didn't I? Nope. 4 Bloodcraft victories. So we should just stick with this for 3 more times. TechRaptor has an article here. Nintendo is making 30 million Switch units this year to meet demand. Which 30 million in total, not 30 million more. That being said, if they're saying we're making 30 million voice
Time to get started.
units of the original or the 1.2 version of the Switch, whatever version they're actually at, that's not an indication that they're going to come out with a new Switch or anything like that. So that those rumors may be dead now around that idea. See, Gamma Sutra had an article. Microsoft debated reducing revenue share on consoles as well as PC, which is kind of nothing to say. At some point somewhere in a meeting, somebody discussed reducing the revenue split from 70-30 to 88-12 like they have it on PC. That being said, it's fairly obvious why they didn't go that direction, because they just didn't need to. They are in a scenario where they have the monopoly as far as online storefronts for Xbox consoles, and they probably have the majority of the market share just as far as online consoles storefronts anyways. I suspect there's significantly fewer sales going to the PlayStation Store and the Nintendo Switch Store. So that's a great example of don't allow yourself to be tricked into thinking that Microsoft is just being the good guy to be the good guy. They're trying to gain market share on PC away from Steam mostly, but also away from Epic Game Store and other storefronts. And once they gained that market share, they would almost certainly probably try to regain some of that revenue split later on, in some way or other. It is, I think, also worth mentioning that Bill and Melinda Gates are splitting up. Now, Bill is a major shareholder of Microsoft, but not really actively involved in it. They're getting divorced. Maybe Bill is going back to being evil, and I'm not sure Bill ever really was very successful about not being evil, frankly. He, and his evilness, I have heard argued, is the evilness of someone who just does not see the ramifications of his actions and is just about getting as much money as possible. Kind of in the same way that I imagine before he died, the Apple Steve Jobs character was evil, just constantly trying to get as much money as possible. I also feel like you probably have the same type of evilness around Jeff Bezos and even Tesla's CEO. It's all the same. We are just, they are just people that are so disconnected from the rest of the world that they don't realize that at a whim of theirs, they are potentially hurting a lot of people. But certainly there has been accusations, and I think those accusations are probably true, that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation did not act properly in trying to protect copyright laws for the COVID-19 vaccine, and they have almost certainly hurt poorer countries in the way they decided to go about it. And the story is that Bill Gates actively argued to protect patent laws instead of open sourcing the cure, which is to show that at the core, Bill Gates still does not believe in open source anything. Microsoft has never moved to open source, and unless Bill Gates loses all his shares or dies, it probably will never really embrace open sourcing a significant amount of its code. And I wouldn't be surprised one bit if somebody said the phrase open source or something like that, and that is what triggered Bill Gates into saying, no, we have to keep the copyright laws. And so, in my own romantic imagination, I would like to think that Melinda Gates has finally realized that you can't change somebody and make them better. Although she definitely succeeded for a long time, it just doesn't work. And this is true for like any wedding. And see, this is a romantic fantasy in my head, and it could be completely unconnected. It could be just that they kind of hated each other from the day one and they were staying together for the kids. That is much more likely the case. But yeah, you can't change somebody, so people are just going to become more so. And that is something that can be extremely scary if you look at yourself and your actions and you realize that, hey, there's definitely some actions here I'd like to improve on. And from internal motivation, you actually do have a chance of improving that, but other people will not change people. It will not happen. Not unless you're going to extreme measures. If you want to lobotomize somebody, you might be able to change them then, but anything short of that, it's just not going to work. So it'll be interesting, I suppose, in a retrospective perspective, to see if 5-10 years down the line, if we see Melinda Gates potentially having half of Bill Gates' money, if she takes it in a good direction, or if she does kind of nothing with it, or if Bill Gates takes his half of his money and does anything good with it. I wouldn't be surprised if some of this isn't straight up also the kids. I wouldn't be surprised since Bill Gates came out and said that he wasn't going to leave basically any money to his children. He was planning on donating a lot of it. Maybe the kids figured out a way to have the have Melinda divorce him, get half of the money, so then they can potentially get half of the money later. Oh, I just killed myself. I need to heal myself somehow. Can I heal myself? Did I attack? No, I didn't.
I go with the wind.
Check this out.
I'm worried about taking 4 damage at the end of this turn, but I'm actually not going to take 4 damage at the end of this turn because this didn't involve an attack. So I'm not even paying enough attention.
I'm coming.
But yeah, that's mostly just basic speculation. We'll have to see if anything changes at all. Next, we have a game on Steam called Planet Battles, and frankly, since Bill Gates really doesn't handle the Xbox division of Microsoft that much, like, I doubt we'll see anything video game related change. Although at a certain point, if the pandemic continues, it will affect all things, including the video game industry. It already has. This looks like garbage. $5.99 and 1 achievement. Yep. Of course, it could also be the exact opposite. Nobody wants to say it out loud, but if entire countries of impoverished nations are basically wiped out, particularly overpopulated countries like in Asia, such as India, are wiped out,
Time to get
that's more resources to spread around the survivors. And the planet has been horribly overpopulated, and nobody wants to admit it. And there's really very little we could do to prevent it other than mass, like, sex ed prevention programs, mandatory IUDs and all teenager females, permits to have children, mandatory abortions if you don't have a permit to have a child. Like, it gets to really scary stuff that nobody wants to even begin to talk about as far as reducing the population. Whereas it's very easy to just let a plague go on for another year and let people who can't get vaccines die from it. Although it's also extremely dangerous to let that happen because it could get out of hand and mutate at any second. And undoubtedly there's already probably thousands of locations around the world that are just massively underreporting or not getting reported on as far as mass outbreaks of COVID. And as highly infectious as COVID is, it is actually a wake-up call because it could have been way, way worse. It could have had a much higher casualty fatality rate on it. And that would have potentially killed a lot more people.
Hunger is sharper than freshness guaranteed.
And almost certainly, if there is another pandemic anytime soon, people are going to take it less seriously than they should, not more seriously. So whatever percentage of the United States citizens that are that get vaccinated eventually, that percentage will be lower in the next pandemic. Oh, I don't know why I'm talking about the pandemic though. It's not video game related. Let's get back to video game news. TechRaptor has an article here. Xbox Live Arcade, the precursor to Game Pass, which Yeah.
Only one way to find out.
What I think the history of arcade really comes around to is not the fact that it was
Fruit fly.
a service that started giving away free games. It was a service that started funding some games, and it allowed things like Fez to be made. Now, arguably, did Phil Fish really deserve to get that extra funding to make a game like Fez? Probably not. Did that really help the video game industry by creating a game like Fez? Not really. Like, if I'm just gonna try and be objective about it, the truth of it comes down to Fez was an interesting game and distraction when it came out, but it also gave a platform for Phil Fish to basically piss everybody off, get pissed off at everybody, and leave the video game industry to never make another game again. Fez as a perspective shifting puzzle game
I lost.
did not introduce any concepts that anybody has ever really stolen or used. People didn't like it. People found it frustrating. The only reason anybody was able to finish the dumb game is because all of the video game players of Fez had to work together. I recently watched somebody try to speedrun Fez. Two people try to speedrun Fez blind, so they knew none of the secrets at all, and they were not able to get anywhere with it. They were just totally confused, did not understand anything. When I tried to cover Fez, I was fairly totally confused and did have to go and look up solutions myself. It was just not really a polished game or experience for an individual to play as a single player game. So in a lot of ways, because it doesn't breadcrumb you and doesn't kind of hold your hand a little bit more, Fez is a terrible game. Whereas if you look at like Super Meat Boy, that created a whole community, at least. It's created far too many clones of frustration platforming games, but at least people are happy about that. Whereas a game like Oxenfree really didn't do anything, and just recently we had Oxenfree 2. Let's see, if I do this and then that, would it get hit again? No. Interesting. Yeah, just recently we got Oxenfree 2 coming out. Castle Crashers was a decent game, but it doesn't really have any legacy. I don't think the creators of Castle Crashers have gone on to do anything else great. Super Meat Boy developers mostly stuck in making Super Meat Boy games. Spelunky Games creator mostly stuck at creating. Yeah, that's true for pretty much either these games that are being mentioned from Xbox Live Arcade. Either the creators quit the industry completely or they are stuck making the same things. Whereas if you compare it to some of the other indie game developers out there, they've not done any better or worse. The creators of Limbo are pretty much still making Limbo games. Let's see. Give an enemy follower a banish ability. See, next we have a game on Steam called The Frog Game, which looks like a frog in a shopping cart as some kind of ridiculous like physics asset flip game. $3.99 English only. I don't see anything there of interest. 2 damage to an enemy. Can I evolve for free? I guess I can. that. See, next we have a game on Steam, Maze Workout, Lost Urban Exit Game Trials 2, which is a mess of a name for a mess of an asset flip game for $1.79, third party EULA.
You look kinda haunted.
A
No, literally.
Mid-Autumn is a newly announced Hades-like dungeon crawler and roguelite, according to TechRaptor, which I'm not sure I love this animation style, but I kind of like the different characters here. It's weird that it's like all over the place here. You've got kind of like a Japanese and Chinese, maybe vice versa. And then you've got maybe like a K-pop singer, and then this definitely looks like a Western girl, and this looks like a Western guy, and then you have a grandma, and then you have another samurai guy. Seems like it is all over the place. Of course, seems like the vast majority of the time you're playing as this group of 5 characters walking around pixel graphics areas, and everybody else is in black. And it seems like it is a top-down roguelike that when you actually start getting into the fighting areas, there's only one character. There might be something here. It's a Kickstarter game though, so they're talking about it far too early for my liking. Alright. See, what can I do?
All the fluffy hugs.
This.
Hey, check this out. Let's revel in the
Let's
fog.
go ahead and hit that. Sony has invested in Discord, according to Gamasutra, and plans to integrate Discord into PlayStation Network next year. So clearly Discord was in
I'm coming.
communication with both Microsoft and Sony, and Sony made a better offer. If anything, I would say Sony needs Discord a lot more than Microsoft needs Discord. Microsoft already has Skype and Teams and Exchange server, so it's got plenty of people working on plenty of technologies as far as communications and groups. Let's see. Do we want to do that? Do this. Let's see. Gametsu has Muv-Love Project Mikhail gameplay video, producer letter volume 1. We may have already talked about this, but I'm gonna try and. They also have Muv-Love alternative the animation, second trailer, staff and cast announcement. As far as an anime based off, I guess, the Muv-Love video game. I have a game on Steam called Unlock the Block, which looks to be just a logic puzzle game. 69 cents, English only. I assume what you're doing is moving things around. No, you're pushing blocks to get to a specific spot. It's not even what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more like Blackout, where you're flipping certain blocks around. See. Banish that one instead. Okay. 5 damage to a random enemy.
Okay, this one's all me.
This guy can do 4 damage to me. I can lose, but if he can't, I can potentially win here. Although I'd need a couple turns. So I still have some effort I have to put into it.
Kinda haunted. Oh no.
Did I want gold again?
I lost. You're tough.
Yep. There are definitely hints that this tournament deck can win. But those hints, I think, circle around the cards that are missing and the fact that I just don't play well enough. See, next we have a game on Steam called The Dream is Coming, which is tagged as a JRPG anime hidden object game.
You won't soon forget.
Seems like you wander around probably a Japanese school looking for stuff. $3.19 English full audio, then Chinese, Japanese, and Russian. I'm gonna put this on the fall list, but I suspect this isn't really much of a game. I think it's trying to be something in a game. And at a certain level, you have to just face it. Like, the Japanese style of games is not to have you wander around a walking simulator in an empty room, in an empty school. That is totally the opposite of what you would see in a Japanese focused experience. There would be people, there would be characters, there would be focus on those characters, there would be story. Empty walking simulators are made by just people who can't animate or are not putting any effort into it, or are trying to tell a narrative interpersonal story that
You must make the first move.
that's just not how the Japanese would really tell a story, because there is no I, there is no individual in the mentality of a Japanese society. It is always we, it is always the group, it is always the other. The other person is more important. The other person you should be honorific to. If you were going to tell a story where
It's your
it was one character alone in a world, it would, even at that point, be from a third person camera angle, so that the viewer was still not in that perspective. And more than likely, if everybody disappeared in the Japanese story, and that was the general conceit, everybody would not disappear, they'd get replaced with like monsters or ghosts or something else. It wouldn't just be emptiness. How do we increase our avarice? That's the question.
fresh manna melons and potion fruit. It's your throw.
Should we attack now or should we wait? I think we'll just attack now. It looked like it had ambush, but it didn't. Next we have a game on Steam called Code Lab, which clearly
You
is
saw through me.
just some garbage game. It's trying to be a programming game, but it just kind of looks terrible. $2.99 English and Chinese.
Lies.
Honestly, I don't feel like you easily can make something look educational and good if you're by adding programming elements to it. Like, I could see the initial thought that perhaps by putting programming in the game you won't have to do as much programming yourself, but I imagine that's the completely untrue. And there's probably easier ways to try to make something look educational than adding programming, so I doubt that's really even the reason they're doing it. Gematsu has Reverse Collapse, Codename Bakery, second preview trailer, gameplay and screenshots. Let's see. Let's see. Gameplay preview, or which one of these? There is a plugin. These are some kind of robots or humans under medical observation or experimentation. There's a plugin on OBS that would have the screen scroll left and right, whereas potentially I might be able to screw up or flip an image enough that YouTube's Content ID wouldn't allow people to claim trailers that they have no right to claim. But I cannot figure out a way to get it to scroll, say, 5 pixels to the left, and then 5 pixels to the right, and then 5 pixels back. I could probably make 2 different scenes, one with a filter to scroll to the left, and one with a filter to screen to the right. And for the average eye, that probably would not change the appearance one bit. But I don't know if I want to bother with trying to set something up like that. Actually, I should probably try and set something up like that. And the gameplay preview of this game, Reverse Collapse, kind of makes it look like an XCOM game, which I was not expecting that. Here we have a game called Happy Z Day, which is just a top-down asset flip zombie game shooter. It looks fine, just a little low polygon. $2.69 English full audio. Not anything that I'd put on the fall list.
Your hypersonic gal is here. It looks like I'm up. The blueprints. Go, go.
Sorry, I'm going quiet here, as I'm just trying to program, just trying to play the game and succeed. We still got plenty of games to talk about. Here we have a game called Lost Islands, which looks like a survival game. It's a little too low polygon-y, and frankly, I don't feel like any survival game is really going to succeed. There is actually some decent thought here to have kind of like this fisherman-style Caribbean island area with what looks like some kind of different dungeons and temples. $14.99 single player with online PvP, English full player, full audio allegedly. Adventure, escape, and fantasy all in one game is not much of an advertisement at all. Let's see. Rush. Do 3 damage. Should have evolved that first. Think you evolve it now.
Check this out.
To make up for that mistake. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Little Fighters on stream. It's controlled by Twitch chat. Early access $2.69. English full audio, Spain Spanish. I think we will see more of these as more and more Twitch thoughts out there and Twitch streamers that don't actually want to play games are going to try to make some kind of interaction with the chat to make up for that so that they can do whatever they're actually doing as far as their content, which in all fairness, if I could get away with that, I would do it too. I would stream 24/7 and let a rabid fan base play the game themselves, and it would just be like Twitch plays Pokemon, which undoubtedly, if there was any monetization around Twitch plays Pokemon, somebody made bank for doing nothing. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Small Press Tycoon, which looks like garbage. See, if you told me this was like a 1985 game, I'd believe you. $7.99 English only.
Time to get started.
That was one thing about Karateka, is that it was like a 1990 Apple II game, or 1996 maybe. So it was a very, very old game originally, and them remaking it was the right thing to do, but I kind of feel like they didn't add anything new, where if you were wise to remake Karateka, you would have turned it into like a roguelike game, and you would have added branching paths or randomization, different enemies, even the basic thing of naming each character you are fighting. You probably want to expand the rhythm concept. Since it is a rhythm karate fighting game, you'd probably want to have several different animations as far as just kicks and punches to focus on fightings. You would want power-ups and things like that. Let's see. Guess I have to play this. And so we'll do that.
Is your lucky day, my friend?
Nah, we'll just hope those were garbage cards. Next, we have a game on Steam called Flow Weaver, which is some kind of VR puzzle game that does seem like it has enough polish to be given a chance. You know, these like gloves. It is $19.99 English and French full audio. Multi-dimensional VR escape room game. Alright, I'll put it on the follow list. Seems like you play seated. Which I feel like that would be about the only kind of VR game I could ever play if I was going to play a game. Is Vengeance activated?
You must make the first move.
Time to splash out.
Yeah, we have a game called Toho Koyu Duo Unconnected Marketeers, which looks just like another one of the shoot 'em up Toho games. English not supported, $14.99, Japanese only. I wouldn't be surprised if you could probably muddle through a game like this, even without English language support. Let's see. Let's see. According to Gametsu, PlayStation Now has Neo, Jump Force, and Streets of Rage 4 in May. So 3 more games join the lineup. I assume some games leave PlayStation Now eventually.
Each life has a different value.
It's your
Hit
throw.
that. Gamatsu has Baldo the Guardian Owls, 13 minutes of gameplay. This is an odd animation style because it's like adult faces. It definitely feels like adult faces here on what feel like kind of kids' bodies. It could just be the angle here, but I doubt it.
You're done for.
And see, I guess that probably in part highlights
Their suffering.
the idea. Yeah, these are like too short, unless these are like dwarf characters, which maybe they are.
To the next level.
These look like kids, and it kind of highlights why the moe anime style and the not anatomically correct art style evolved, is because it is very easy probably to make this kind of mistake and have these adult looking faces on what are clearly supposed to be kids. Also, I'd say that thumbnail image of them holding each other is a fairly romantic pose that you don't see highlighted amongst kids that much. Yeah, as an actual game though, this looks like this might be interesting. It's coming out for the Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Do this. Evolve here.
Go! Go!
Hit this. So it fills this card up.
It's your
Hit this to kill this.
The curse?
Vengeance is not anywhere close to being activated, so we'll just play it. Yeah, this is just a very weird pose. Very weird screenshot to show. Your proficiency came true and a pure heart child is born. There's no creature sealed in the underworld by the wise old owls is about to... The no heart creature sealed in the underworld is about to be rise again. Interesting. I would say Baldo the Guardian of Owls does not look anywhere as good as Ni no Kuni though, so that is another consideration to think about. Gain a bunch of points.
I shall give birth to a new world. Thus,
Interesting.
the world begins.
Probably would have been better to have played that card, wouldn't it? Although I guess it doesn't probably matter. We already talked about this, but Gamatsu has Sony Interactive Entertainment announces a partnership with Discord. Our goal is to bring Discord and PlayStation experience closer on consoles and mobile starting earlier next year. Which, at a certain point, there is this question as to how much of Sony's infrastructure is actually going to be run by Sony, because I think the back end of the PlayStation Network is being run by the Amazon warehouse service, where at least Microsoft is almost certainly doing its back end on its own Azure service. If Discord is doing the chat and the intercommunication stuff, then that's considerably fewer people at Sony actually working on Sony as a PlayStation Network or Sony's online content. And they may very well just be doubling down on funding other companies to make exclusives for them to the point where nobody internally is actually making any content. We want to do this, or
Life's a gamble. May as well have fun. Will it be crimson red?
hit that, I suppose, and then the turn. Next, we have a game on Steam called Beat Biome, which is clearly just a music visualizer. $2.99 VR. I don't find anything particularly interesting here.
I'm going on ahead.
Although I could see where using this might be interesting to visualize music. It would only be interesting to the person wearing a VR headset. And that really makes a weird question as to why would you be wearing a VR headset to listen to music. It'd probably be fairly difficult to wear good headphones and listen to good audio in VR. Some VR headsets have some accommodation for that, but why not just be in the room, in that case, wearing headphones? Close your eyes and use your imagination if you have one. Next, we have a game called Metal Mars, which looks like it's a resource management game, for lack of a better term. It looks terrible. $11.99, English only. Let's see what this one does. Okay, hit that. Right. And then we hit that one. And that one. And then we can just end the turn. See, this card only does damage to enemy followers, which is great. Next, we have a game on Steam called Cut Them Up, which looks like it is a buzzsaw flinging style game, for lack of a better term. It looks terrible. $4.49, English only. Nothing there.
The hour of judgment has come.
Okay. What can we do? 3 damage to an enemy. 4 damage to an enemy.
Fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
Do we want to evolve anything? This could do 8 damage to all other followers if we evolve it. Sure.
Check this out.
Where should I drop this lightning bolt? Oops, my hand slipped.
I think you owe me an apology.
At that point, there we go. See, next we have a game on Steam called Spy City, which seems to just be a simulation of a whole city full of spies, kind of like a werewolf game. It does not look well animated though. Early access $1.79. Online PvP. TechRaptor has an article here. Documents reveal Sony may have charged developers for a PlayStation 4 crossplay. According to the Apple, I assume this is the Apple Epic fight that has revealed documents. This is a perfect example of why you would want to settle, is you just don't want all your shady business that you've been doing, and you know every company has been doing shady business. You just don't want that popping up. in the public so people know what's been going on. Not yet on that one. I could do that one. Let's go ahead and do this. What does this one do? Oh, another allied follower? Good. We'll do that. Fine.
Child, let the heavens be your shepherd.
There we go.
My answer.
Freshness guaranteed.
Oh, come on!
Could also just evolve at this moment. But there's kind of no reason to. Well, I can now see how this card, with any other card, could potentially win the game for you. Game Researcher has an article. Epic paid devs nearly $12 million for 9 months of Epic Games Store free games. These are different than the exclusivity deals. This is just straight up, these are the free games. Which, by the way, I haven't even looked at that. I think we already talked about that this Forged in Shadow Torch Fist game is in final stages of development, according to Gematsu. We probably already talked about that. Streets of Rage 4, Mr. X Nightmare adds Max Thunder.
I lost.
People are sort of talking about Returnal, but I think there's major problems with that game, and I think people are going to kind of rage quit on it. Much in the way that I feel like I'm potentially going to rage quit on Hyper Light Drifter. I'll give it a try on easy as starting all over, but part of the problem is you have a limited amount of health, and it feels like without the game telling you any of this, you really needed to upgrade your health kit usage to the max before anything else, and you kind of need to wander around the entire area and get as many free upgrade components as possible, because you have to get 4 pieces of heart, for lack of a better description, to upgrade one, and you need like really 8 or 12 pieces of heart to upgrade most things. So you kind of need to do that before you even use one health kit in the entire game, which is asking a lot. A lot of times they throw a ton of enemies at you. A lot of times they throw a really heavy hitting enemies at you, and it's really just asking a lot. And they are major difficulty spikes, because in other areas you're barely fighting anybody, or you're not fighting anybody at all, so you're not really warming up your gameplay style around that concept. Let's see. Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout for Xbox Series, Xbox One, and Switch has been delayed, according to Gematsu. Here we have a game on Steam called Kindred Fates Combat Arena Alpha, which seems like a Pokemon clone. Doesn't look terrible. Playing as Pokemon, fighting other Pokemon. These definitely feel heavily inspired by Pokemon, but whatever. $54.99, third party account and online PvP, unfortunately. So I would like to see some reviews on this game, but if you're going to make a Pokemon Online experience, I don't want to have to make a third-party account on top of Steam, and I would like some kind of single-player aspect to it. Here we have a game on Steam called Potion Meister, which looks to be a low-effort alchemy potion game. Early access for $3.99. Here we have Blade Flash Death, which is some kind of time management experimental game where you are dragging people on a vector and then moving their movements. That's an interesting idea to potentially program a fight. At a certain point, that's probably going to be incredibly boring, but whatever. Free is interesting. English full audio.
Those centuries
Definitely
past,
feels like
I
this should be
remember
a student
all.
project. I want to see some reviews on this, but the concept's not terrible. It would just get really boring because you would always win. There's basically no way that you could have any struggle at all unless they just make the puzzles really well polished and really difficult, which I suspect that's not what they're going to do. I suspect that it's very, very simplistic. Next, we have a game on Steam called Bunny Shot, which is just a Puyo Puyo game for 84 cents, English only. Here we have Experience the Energy, Take the Tour, which looks like it's a VR kind of museum with real world pictures. I almost assume that this is some kind of free advertisement for clean coal. See, natural gas, liquid pipelines, mining, processing. Seems to be it seems to probably been funded by the Canadian government. English and French from Energy Safety Canada. Not really a terrible thought, though. I don't know why it needs to be in VR, though. It feels like this would have been just as interesting in a non-VR experience, and almost certainly something like this was originally designed to be in a museum somewhere, some kids' museum. Let's hit this. And then evolve this. Hit that. Then go ahead and kill that. Here we have similar game. Experience the energy, take the challenges, which seems to actually have some games around it. Free, but VR still, English, French. Which, okay. That makes a lot of sense. I could see like having 2 VR headsets in a museum and 2 different games. I could see even getting young kids to line up for some dumb experience like that, thinking that it was going to be something way better than it was.
Life's a gamble. May as well have fun.
That is certainly the case with a lot of the amusement parks, is that you're having a weird enough experience that you don't recognize how good or bad it really is. Like, very few people would want to go through even Disney World every single day. The standing in line versus the actual reward is pretty bad. TechRaptor has an article. A major Watch Dogs Legion update adds 2 new operatives. I don't know why you particularly call that a major update. And if anything, that just reminds me that Watch Dogs Legions exist, because I've completely forgotten it did.
I never get a chance to speak.
You have a good eye.
Gametsu has this article. Konami is going to skip the E3 2021 because it's in deep development on a number of key projects. I have a suspicion that is a lie. I would heavily suspect they're not in development with anything, and they are simply just playing it coy and don't want to admit that they've pretty much given up on video games.
this is meaningless.
It could be a half-truth. Certainly, Konami could be in deep development on a number of key projects, and none of them could be video game related at all. A new Yoko Taro title is being composed by Kiichi Okabe. This is announced during the Nier series. They also came back and put out some kind of update / apology as far as the English port of Nier Incarnation, which I assume this is really just a case of the audio not being, the English translation not being as good as it should be. Oops. Thought I was going to do 2 damage to that guy. Here we have a game on Steam called Lo-Fi Lounge, which looks like just an asset flip game for VR. Free, I guess. English only. So it's just a hangout thing, but there's online MMO elements is what it's labeled as. I don't know why I would want to hang out as a lo-fi avatar though. That seems kind of ridiculous. Next we have a game called Zombie Mathers, which is zombies coming at you while you have to answer math problems. Interesting idea, terrible implementation. $2.79 English, Japanese full audio. I was going to call it a low effort Chinese game, but I guess it's a low effort Japanese game. Yeah, there might be an idea around that, but also I don't know if you really want to introduce zombies into the world of math education, because that would just terrify a percentage of people away from ever learning math. And the damage and the harm you could do there almost certainly outweighs the potential positive outcome. The students that are interested in zombies or shooting zombies while doing math would be overrun by the students that are not interested in that or find that scary, particularly at the young age at which math should be taught. Next we have a game on Steam here called Jumble Rumble, which it looks like a Contra clone, and it doesn't look too bad. $6.59 English full audio. It deserves a follow. Let's see. Next we have a game called Into the Night, which I think we already talked about this, and it looked too empty as far as the gameplay mechanics and enemy types. $2.99. Yeah, some of these are definitely gonna be reruns. Here we have a game called Avalanche of Brendan, which I think is just an asset flip, like escape the room puzzle game. Early access $16.99 English, Russian, Turkish. Yeah, I just don't think I see a game here I want to play. If anything, it feels like you're just simulating somebody's life, and then they put a ridiculous lie backstory around it.
What you need is a nice roaring flame.
Let's see. Next we have this visual novel called My Dear Prince. Now this was a game that I was using for the chroma key test. It's not enabled at the moment, obviously, but like this tan character, not a huge problem, but a slight problem if you're going for like skin range of usually the pale Japanese. But that the wider you have to do it. Theoretically, if I was going to do it well, I would get a skin tone of the standard anime white character or Japanese white, and then the anime tanned character, and then I would also probably go for a red for like nipples, and probably a very dark skinned character for the rare occasions. In my testing, this slight pink was enough off that I had to expand the matching to catch the skin. And then inherently, if you're just catching the skin, you're blotting out all of the skin, face, eyes, arms. You're not just blotting out boobs and butts, as it were. So it's not really a good system as far as censorship or self-imposed censorship. As well, I don't know if I really would call that self-imposed if it's YouTube forcing me to do it or encouraging me to do it. To actually talk about this game, it's tagged as an LGBTQ plus game. It's $8.99, English and Chinese. We could put it on the fall list, I suppose. That's about it. It's weird that you would have a girl-on-girl Yuri story. But then it's clearly in a Chinese developer, would be my guess. Moving on, we have a game that's called The Bits That Saved the Galaxy, which looks horrible. $4.79, English only. Trying to burn through all these games. Here we have a game called Free Willig, which I think might be German for like fire something. Seems to be several firemen and maybe an arsonist. This guy does look like an arsonist. Tutorial comic book puzzle game for $4.99, English and German. I don't know if the English translation here is going to really make sense. Or if the match 3 gameplay here really makes any sense. I'll give it a chance, but almost certainly I shouldn't. Okay.
Fresh manna melons and potion fruit.
I need to figure out the actual card that I should be giving power-ups to, because
Hunger is sharp freshness guaranteed.
actually these were cards I added, so that's not even part of the strategy. Next we have a game on Steam called Goblin.life, which looks horrible. $3.99, English only. Definitely could curate a lot of these games just at first glance. We talked about this briefly on Friday, and I said we'd talk about it more today. So the Sly Cooper Tomba 2 composer Ashif Hakik died apparently. Let's see. He was a QA tester on Medieval, Spyro the Dragon, and Twisted Metal 2. He worked on Sly Cooper, Tomba 2, The Evil Swan, Return, Phantom Vision, and Crash Team Racing, Nitro Refueled. You see, there seems to be just a tweet here. No indication on what he died from. Still, whatever. Like, in the old days, it would be, you just assume it was drug related, but now it's just assumed that it was pandemic related.
Freshness guaranteed.
There we go. So yeah, not a lot more to say there. Here we have a game on Steam called Kings and Kingdoms, which seems to be some kind of strategy game. Doesn't look terrible.
Like the
Early access, $4.99, English, Russian, Turkish. Put it on the follow list. I'm not sure if I ever really would want to play a strategy game like this, but I do like the visuals on this game somewhat. Of course, I may hate the gameplay mechanics. Here we have the update to the story. Activision has turned Crash 4 developments team into a Warzone studio support studio and denies layoff rumors. So they are just like doubling down crazy on Warzone, which Toys for Bomb is on hand to support the development of Call of Duty Warzone, but denies the studio experienced recent layoffs due to the shift. Reports of layoffs at Toys for Bob are incorrect. Here's how you deny it while it's still being true. You just say they're incorrect in the sense that you find one small piece of what was said and you are even slightly able to deny it. For damage to all followers would kill that. Can we evolve that? Alright, well good, we'll just do that.
Oh no! Hey, check this out!
Should I drop the... Oops, my hands.
There we go. The next quote is, the development team is operating fully and has a number of full-time job openings at this time. Studio is excited to continue supporting Crash 4. It's about time, and more recently provide additional development support to Call of Duty Warzone. So, yep.
I won!
Of course, there's really no reason to believe Activision Blizzard in a single word they say. As Activision Blizzard in particular is just imploding, and we know it is. So they may be hiring new people, but the old skilled people, the people that would have been part of Activision or Blizzard in decades previous, or have long since left, or are leaving in mass quantities. Here we have a game on Steam called Pro Deer Hunting 2. I would really have to think about whether I really want to play any kind of hunting game, because I played like a deer hunting pinball table on Pinball Arcade, and I just did not like the idea of hunting animals while playing pinball. It just did not. It felt more violent than any other pinball table has ever been, and I'm fine with violence in video games, but there was just something weird about that concept. It also, I just don't think was a very good game. I also realized that there was an AC/DC table that was available for sale for a brief moment on Pinball Arcade, and then they lost the license. So yeah, at a certain point I could probably try to find some kind of hack to put the table in, which I suppose you could do that with all of Pinball Arcade's tables, and that might be a small solution if you want to play on the Pinball Arcade engine, but there really is no reason to do that when you should just take the next step and go to Visual Pinball and use Visual Pinball as your place of where you're going to play all pinball tables. That is the smarter move by far. And so I don't think I'm going to spend any more money trying to collect the 4 remaining pinball tables that are available for purchase. I looked at someone talking about Pinball Arcade, and apparently the newest tables, which would be Big Buck Hunter and the Melons game, which I can't remember the name of it. Big Juicy Melons or something like that is the name of that table. Both of those came out like in 1999 or halfway through 1998, and there has not no, not 1999, but 2019, 2018, basically. So it has been 1.5 years to 2.5 years since there's been any new table. Suppose I'll put this pro deer hunting on the fall list, though. I should try one of those games. But yeah, 2 years for them to not release a single table guarantees that the game has been abandoned as far as Pinball Arcade. Now there is also Zachariah Pinball on Steam, which apparently Zachariah Pinball tables are like the third most popular tables, but I don't recognize any of those designs of tables at all. And the game on Steam is early access, and it has been since 2018, so that seems really weird to have your game labeled as early access for a pinball emulator. Here we're looking at Island Farmer Jigsaw Puzzle. I think I might like this as an idea. $1.39 English only. So I'm going to put it on the fall list, see if people otherwise like it. It may be pretty dumb, and it's kind of like a Karscone, a rearrangement puzzle concept. Let's see. Guess we just do this. And then that. And I guess you do that. I guess I could have evolved that too. But again, why would you do that instead of just using visual pinball? Which I think that is a project I probably will work on, but man, I got so many projects I start then abandon, and then things I really do need to work on, things that are just entertainment concepts. Next we have a game on Steam, Life Winner Kong's Double Dragon Dream. I don't know if I talked about the Chia new cryptocurrency from the creator of BitTorrent. I'm looking into it a little bit, but I kind of don't see any guarantee that it would actually succeed as an idea, and it kind of feels like you lose any crypto coins you ever have if you don't constantly have the farm space of hard drive storage space. So you can't like sell your crypto coins. Well, you can't do anything with them in the initial setup. So the whole concept is seemingly very, very connected and restricted by the original creators, and it seems like they aren't letting its value just be its value. It seems like they are going to kind of establish not an initial coin offering, but an initial value that they're going to shoot for. And so it seems like they can manipulate the market as they see fit way more than I think Bitcoin can. But yeah, I would have to wonder, can you sell at some point in the future the Bitcoin and thus recover that hard drive space, or are you potentially going to have to put thousands of gigabytes if you want any large number of the Chia coins just always on a hard drive? And do you have to then clone that hard drive before it dies? Otherwise you lose those Chia coins. And so then there's the idea of running computers constantly and having them online always, and to just maintain hard drive space, which I'm not sure what the hard drive space is really holding other than maybe the blockchain itself, whereas it feels like that space should be used for something better than that, just not to be wasteful.
Check this out.
Are you having fun yet?
So yeah, I'm not sure I I think that that is a smart way to go. If I've talked about it, even as someone who has a lot of hard drive space, who could probably spare some. I'm not sure that's something I'd want to do. And it is built around the concept that hard drive space is not going to get much bigger and better, when I suspect we may very well see hard drive space get much bigger and better, in the same way we saw video cards get bigger and better as far as Bitcoin mining and Ethereum mining. It would be more beneficial to me, I think, in the long run, to see hard drives that come out that are very cheap and have yeah, like very cheap. Let's see, can we evolve this? Yeah, very cheap hard drives would be way more beneficial to me than a few $100 even of Chia coins.
I lost. You're tough.
I don't know why I'm rambling about Chia coins though, other than I looked into it, which in all fairness I was not paying any attention when Ethereum or Bitcoin came out, although I really could have been in a position where I could have potentially crypto Bitcoin mined a few Bitcoins and forgotten about it for 10-20 years, and then come back and been fairly wealthy at some peaks. That being said, I also very possibly would have
Time to get started.
lost the wallet,
Shall we cross swords?
and that is something to consider on any of these cryptocurrencies, is that there kind of needs to be a way in which people can lose money, and then the blockchain can recover that money somehow. Because if you burn $1, you can mail like a $100 bill. They probably wouldn't do it for a $1 bill, but if you had a $100 bill in a fire, you can mail that actually to the treasury, and they will eventually, very eventually, give you a check for the amount of the burnt money if you have more than half of it recovered. There's some other rules to it, but plus, if somebody drops $1 on the street and it gets flushed down into a drain and destroyed, that doesn't inherently make it more difficult to print a new dollar, whereas in Bitcoin, it totally does that. Moving on. Video games. Facebook acquires the Onward developer Downpour Interactive. Kind of wish I remembered what Onward is. Apparently it's a VR game. So Facebook is just acquiring more VR companies. Here we have a Escape Room VR Vaudeville, which looks just like some asset flip things with some Harry Houdini stuff, which a Harry Houdini themed game isn't a terrible idea. This is just a terrible implementation. $7.99, English full audio. Yep. I think you pretty much would tell a fictionalized story around Harry Houdini, but it wouldn't be crazy. I watched on Netflix, this was another thing I wasted my time on, The Irregulars, and it wasn't a waste of time. It was a decent series. Although weird, as they kind of established the Irregulars as a group of 13-year-olds, and then they kind of pushed them into being romantically and sexually active, which set in the times of Sherlock Holmes, because that's what it is the Baker Street Irregulars, the group of kids that Sherlock Holmes would have paid to find out information for him. But then they take that concept and they go in a very far direction with it. This group of irregulars seem to have a very close connection. It is only a slight spoiler to say, to the events that are happening, and all the events that are happening throughout the entire season are heavily focused around a magical element. So they've added magic to Sherlock Holmes. They also completely, for the most part, eliminate Sherlock Holmes from the story. Like you only see him at all from in the second half of the first season, and he does nothing. He's basically an idiot, and may have never actually been as smart as he was sold to be. And so his stories of his intelligence seem to be heavily exaggerated.
Should I drop this lightning bolt?
I'm gonna lose either way. So it's kind of weird that it's even made around Sherlock Holmes for that reason, because it really could have just been a standalone story and it would have made a lot more sense. It's also weirdly one of these period piece movies and TV shows where they don't really try hard to make things be period accurate. So it feels like you're in this weird world where sometimes fabrics and technologies and things like that are modern when it's supposed to be 100, 200 years ago. And there's just some weirdness around that. And it kind of is a monster of a week story for the most part until they wrap it up at the end. I wouldn't particularly recommend watching it until there's 2 or 3 seasons going, or perhaps the entire thing has been canceled. There is one full season to give you one full story, but where it sets itself up at that one, at the end of that full season, you are pretty much never going to see Sherlock Holmes again, it feels like, and you're really going to just be following these irregulars. Which, yeah, at that point it's just kind of a teen drama. A lot like the CW type teen dramas. What is that one? Archie. That is just a teen drama using that loose setting of being in that area, in that universe. It is not as bad as I think Batwoman, which, from whatever I've heard of Batwoman, seems like there's very little interest in actually telling a Batwoman style story in Batwoman, and it's just interest in being preachy. I'll say the new Charm series is also kind of in that same category, where it is almost certainly more interested in being preachy than actually trying to tell the Charm story of taking out demons. They ruined that whole concept, and they're rushing through the entire backstory of the original Charm series, something that went like 10 or 12 seasons, and they are going to run out of stuff to copy in like 3 seasons. I wouldn't be surprised, as far as the new Charmed, if by the point that the next season starts, I wouldn't be surprised if they have already gotten pregnant and are having the next generation of children, or they're introducing a whole bunch of characters to potentially be younger and more replacements. They have introduced one new character already, but I'm not sure how far that character is going to stay around. Anyways, we're supposed to be talking about video games instead of TV. Man, I've hit that switch, obviously, where I'm just kind of bored with the games that have come out. Here we have one called Glorious Tornius, which is just a player versus player. It's not terrible. I don't like the avatars. It's requires a control. It's 1124. It's shared screen, split screen, English full audio. Let's see. Spells will do 1 more damage.
Do not seek what is not there.
Do we want to evolve this? Next, we have a game on Steam called Landing Confirmed, which looks like it is just a Lander clone for $2.69. Bunch of languages. I don't know why people even make Lander clones. I don't even know how new developers would particularly even think that that was on the table as a concept. Like, it's just kind of a ridiculous game to even try and clone. Must be popular somewhere that I'm not aware of. Next, we have a game on Steam called Bonsai Castles, which is some kind of castle Minecraft type game. They're calling it a tower defense. $14.99 English and Japanese. Yeah, I guess I could see a Minecraft / tower defense type game. What's weird here though, you have them in the like sailor school outfits. It looks like when they're more in feudal time kimonos and other outfits. And this is definitely a feudal time type castle. Next, we have a game on Steam called War Dogs Red's Return, which looks like a dog beat 'em up fighting game. There might be an idea here. $3.59 English, Portuguese, Brazil. Now, the idea of having the words dog fighting in your description is dangerous, certainly. But yeah, there might be an idea here. Seems like humanoid dogs in different action styles and fighting styles. $3.59. I already said that. I'll put that on the follow list. See how people respond to it. I wouldn't be surprised if people don't respond to it well. Let's go.
Should I drop this lightning? Oops, my
Hit
hand
that.
slipped.
At the start of your next turn, put a random blood crop follower from your deck into your hand. I can see the beginning of the end. Here we have a game called War Pips, which is some kind of tower defense game. It doesn't look terrible. It's just, I'm not sure I want to play a game like that's a tower defense game. It's a little too flashy on the bullets, and that's gonna visually confuse me. Otherwise, this theme looks interesting, and the design looks interesting. Early access for $9.59, bunch of languages. Unfortunately, it's still just a tower defense game, though, so I'm gonna say no. I'm not gonna get suckered into playing a tower defense game. Here we have a game called Tail Trail, which is some kind of investigation game. You're looking for a missing person. Slow polygon, obviously. $6.95. English, Arabic, Russian, and Chinese. We'll put it on the follow list.
Really
It's
the
probably
right way.
nothing, but there might be something there.
Like crying.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Upside. This looks like just a shoot 'em up type game. Maybe some physics to it. You're using this mouse cursor to bounce things out of the way to protect the chicken going upward. $1.59 English only. Yeah, that's nothing. Unfortunately, it seems like we are going to be in a scenario at which we just fail. Don't get the victory. Or even some of the victories. Right, well, I hope when I evolve this I can attack.
Hey, check this out. My crumpets.
Do I want to discard 2 cards?
Spin ball, spin.
We have Predator Hunting Grounds now on Steam. It's a shame that it's so mixed reviewed already. $29, but the bundle edition is $39. English full audio in a bunch of languages. This is an online PvP game that was exclusive, I believe, to the Epic Store, so almost certainly nobody is playing it. And it's a shame, but honestly, if I was going to play a Predator game, I would never really consider playing player versus player. That just seems silly. Because the Predator's supposed to win always. Here we have a game called Cryofall, which is some kind of base building colony sim. Doesn't look terrible for its flat animations. It's $12.99, bunch of languages. Colony sim, MMO, though, so not the kind of game I would play. Can we win? 3 damage to everybody. Do we have an evolve? Play this, and I wouldn't be targeted, but I wouldn't be able to attack. I could play this.
Each life has a different value. Today is your lucky day, my friend.
Interesting. See, next we have a game on Steam called Silence Channel, which definitely looks spooky with these faceless characters in the thumbnail. But I'm not sure there's actually a game here. It's just tagged as a hidden object game. And we're getting a lot of dark screenshot syndrome. Fading in and fading out, trying to be, let's say, very PT-esque as far as that teaser. And I have to wonder if there is nothing but tease in this game. At a certain point, I guess it doesn't matter. I can put this on the follow list and see if anybody reviews it and move on from there. So I'll just put that on the follow list. English full audio.
There's my blade in your light, oh forest life.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called Military Base War, which looks low polygon, top-down twin-stick shooter, $4.99. Next, we have a game on Steam called Bus Stop in the Fog, which looks like nothing, just asset flips for 99 cents. And it's no surprising on this Monday that we had a bunch of games left over. Arguably, as I'm trying to figure out the right amount to focus on as far as to leave over the weekend, I need to almost certainly reduce that number,
Time to splash out.
because we have at least 15 minutes, 20 minutes of too much content. Although, who's to say we didn't go 4 hours on Friday? We probably did. And that's just something I'll never really be able to lock in unless I know a specific number. And I guess I could do it by length of number of tabs, and that would be a specific number to leave over. And I think that's kind of what I did on Friday. Here we have a game called The Little Drone 2, which apparently you're controlling a drone for $1.99, English only. Then we have Little Traveler. I think we already talked about this because it's already on the fall list. And then here we have The Last King's Archer, which you stand in one place and shoot archery bows. It seems like you can dash left and right, but I'm not sure there's actual levels or platforming or anything else. Nope, there isn't. 79 cents English only. That's not something I think I'd want to play. Next we have a game called Flood Fighting Hero, which I like the art style, but almost certainly English is not supported here. It is just that game Pipes, which honestly there should be more games, clones of Pipes out there. $5.59 is a little too expensive, Chinese only. Yeah. Okay. If I hit this, and then hit this, and this, and then this.
You have a good eye.
The hour of judgment has come. I was
Hit
too
that.
late. The miasma pervades all.
Good draw.
That killed everybody. So I didn't need to attack. Here we have a game called Robin Hood Hail to the King, which is kind of the opposite of Robin Hood thing. I put together a Lego set that had a Robin Hood-like statue, and then he had his hands handcuffed behind his back for the stone statue on the pedestal, and a sword in front of him. And I'm like thinking to myself, what statue is this supposed to represent? Because I've never seen anything like that. I don't know why somebody in handcuffs, you'd make a statue around that. And clearly it really was just an example. They had already used handcuffs in the Lego set before and they wanted to use them again. But seems silly. This game is just one of those resource management games. So I have no interest in that. I don't know why I'm looking at World of Tanks, but apparently it's on Steam, free to play, and it's mixed reviewed. So for as much as World of Tanks advertised, it really failed to make a good product by most people's opinion.
My blade is autumn. I am the fallen leaf.
I lost. You're tough.
Next we have a game on Steam here called Under the Ghost Mountain, which looks like it is the beginnings of a platformer, but it really looks like a low-effort Chinese game. Early access, 59 cents, Chinese only. Alright, so what did we accomplish? I'm gonna have to make a special effort in the next 17 hours to just do private matches, and hopefully I can play private matches and get victories in card packs, and maybe get one more victory here, and maybe get 3 victories here, because almost certainly after it says play 1 private match, it's going to say play 2, 3, 4. Also, we have the single player storyline that I still need to work on. I think I kind of felt like I had done everything I could do on the solo single player stuff, so what? It's weird that they would say you have to do the single player story, and then the single player story hadn't been cleared. But I feel like that's exactly what happened. Yeah, either I failed in a fight here. Yeah, I must have failed at a fight, or that level had not been added. Weird that they would be adding levels bit by bit, breaking it down. Also weirder that they're just not really emphasizing that and advertising that enough. Here we have a game on Steam called Extreme Racing, which is just top-down racing. $6.99 English, Russian, nothing of interest there. We have about 6 more tabs. Here we have a game called Art of Space, which just looks like a space shoot 'em up game, top-down, for $4.89. Here we have a game that's just all Asian characters. Apparently it's a full motion video game, and it's mostly negative. Interesting. Well, English was not supported, so I have to ignore it. Anyways, $3.59, Chinese only. This might be a game getting brigaded, or it might be just a terrible game. You just really don't know. And really can't even stick a toe into that conversation if you can't understand it. Here we have a game called Mushroom Monster, which looks like a joke game. $3.39 English only. No interest in that. Here we have a game called The Hell Hives, which seems to be a runner / first person shooter in a whole bunch of random areas. So you're running and you're shooting. And then there's a bunch of assets being flipped. I doubt there's anything to this game. $4.24, but I'll be generous and give it a follow. I seriously doubt there's anything here. It just kind of feels like it knows how the hand is hovering under some of the gun models. It feels like somebody tried for a brief moment, then gave up and put their game on sale. Here we have a game called Criminal T, and I could certainly understand how that would happen, where potentially somebody had a week or 2 to work on, or a year to work on a game, they lost their job for pandemic reasons or just out of random reasons, and then they needed to take something that they were working on as a hobby, and they know that themselves is not truly finished, and then they need to try to turn that into a way of making money. And inherently that is, even as a YouTube content creator, a concern. Certainly, like, ideally I would be perfectly set, and I pretty much almost am, at least for a while, to just make whatever content I want on YouTube. But there is definitely that capitalist push to corrupt an artistic vision into a capitalistic product to sell. I'm not sure what this game Criminal T is, but I think it might want to give it a chance. $9.99, bunch of languages. So, I mean, I can't be too cruel in my criticism, or I can, at least, I will be that cruel actually, but I can understand how that happens. Although that concept falls completely out the window when you have somebody who's put out 2 or 3 low-effort garbage games, either a publisher or developer, because at that point, you know that they don't care. Once is a mistake or an unfortunate series of events, but twice is a pattern and an intent, and it speaks to intent. Although even the first one kind of speaks to intent. Here we have Eddie Hill and the Curse of the Skull Mountain as a precision frustration platformer. It's not really a game for me, but it doesn't look bad. I could see other people potentially wanting to play this. Even playing Hyper Light Drifter, which is a top-down game, I see some elements that are fairly frustrating as far as the dashing and platforming, and that's just not something I'd be looking for. This game is free, English full audio, so check it out if you're interested. And then finally we have a game called Before It Began, which looks like it is a ugly visual novel. Here we have Keanu Reeves' image being used, almost certainly illegally. Although, technically, you can parody the likeness of Keanu Reeves, as long as you don't call him Keanu Reeves. Early access, English not supported, Chinese only. Looks terrible anyways. Okay. And so then that puts me as done. We're not looking at the Humble Bundle anymore, so eventually I'll get used to just not even mentioning it. So then I just need to look at my Twitter feed and see if there's any new news that has come out, which I started so late today anyways, I assume there won't be. Let's see, FB Neo, what's that? Final Burn Neo has made a new blog post. See if there's an actual thing worth mentioning there as one of the cores of Retro Arc. See. A lot of talk around Pokemon Snap still. It's been 19 years since Team Orochi has been playable in King of Fighters 2002, but now they're back with new background music, if that makes any sense to you. People. To you, I suppose. If you play King of Fighters, that probably makes sense. And I'm just scrolling down every tab I have to see if we have any bigger news. I feel like at least 2 or 3 games should have come out on Steam, but maybe not. Like, there really hasn't been one since 2 hours ago, and that there's only been 2, so like I can be a full clean slate to just show off this game, Diva the Haunted Game, which just looks like an asset flip. Well, actually it looks like it is a whole collection of different types of games, and so it's probably demos and garbage. $14.39. See, a thing like this, I would have to hear somebody else say something great about before I'd even give it a consideration. And then we have a game called Bone Mayhem, which seems to be a massive shooter, first-person shooter, tower defense type game. $11.99 seems to be too expensive for what I'm seeing here, though. And then here's the Lib Retro. I was calling it Retro Arc. They've changed the name. Final Burn Neo version 1.0.0.02 hit release. see. Regular, I see misunderstandings about the playability focus. It doesn't mean we don't care about accuracy. When we add a new system, we usually make it as accurate as possible, and we also revisit old systems for accuracy improvement purposes. In some edge cases, we even end up being more accurate than MAME. It's always a bit funny when someone comes reporting that something is different from MAME, so that must be a bug. And after investigating about the actual cabinet, we learned that Final Burn Neo is actually the one emulating the game properly. In those cases, we let MAME devs know, so I believe the inaccuracies are fixed shortly after on their side. So, yeah. They go into some high-level detailed things. Yeah, that you probably don't care about. Let's see. They added support for like Judge Dredd, NBA Hang Time, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, several other games you can see here. Revolution X, interesting. As far as Midway games, yeah, having more support for arcade games, particularly things like Revolution X, which really aren't even fight games, is interesting. Does that, because then you just have two options certainly as far as would you want to use Final Burn Neo or would you want to use a variant of MAME, particularly when you're doing it on the Raspberry Pi and you potentially aren't getting patched modern versions of MAME anyways. Final Burn Neo's versions may come a little bit faster, or they may just not run at all on Raspberry Pi, so that kind of emulation at some levels actually just has to be done with a more modern PC. Well, that's going to be it for this recording. I guess, yeah, we are at like 31,000 dropped frames. So I'm dropping like 4.1% of dropped frames. Even with a 30-second buffer, that seems weird. I'm going to have to investigate that. I'm going to have to try and fix that with the network. But anyways, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below.